Picture a world without writing, without laws, without kings, without cities. A world where human life is small, wandering, fragile, where nature decides everything. And then, in one narrow strip of fertile river valley between the Tigris and Euphrates, something impossible happens. People begin to gather, villages swell into towns, towns rise into cities with walls, temples, marketplaces, irrigation networks, and rulers who claim the favor of the gods. Here, humanity builds the first civilization, not a myth, not a legend, a real living world. Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Babylon, places where the ideas that still shape us were created for the first time: writing, mathematics, the first laws, the first administrators, the first organized armies, the first bureaucracies, the first kings who claimed not just power, but divine purpose. Mesopotamia becomes the cradle of civilization, but it also becomes something else, the birthplace of civilization's first collapse. Because hidden inside the inventions that made Mesopotamia great were also the seeds that would destroy it: scarcity, inequality, warfare, environmental fragility, and a belief system that tied the fate of entire cities to the ego of a single king. So today, we ask a timeless question. What made Mesopotamia rise, and why did it fall? And what does its story reveal about us, about civilization itself? Let's begin. The Great Experiment. 1. The rivers that created a civilization. To understand Mesopotamia, start with the land. Not lush, not gentle. Mesopotamia sits between two unpredictable rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, whose flooding could bring life or annihilation. Unlike Egypt's dependable Nile, Mesopotamia's rivers were chaotic. They could flood violently without warning, wiping out entire harvests. So why build civilization here? Because beneath the danger lay opportunity. Wild wheat and barley grew naturally. Clay for buildings and tablets lay everywhere. Fish and waterfowl filled marshlands. Rivers enabled trade from the Persian Gulf to Anatolia, and scarcity of natural resources forced innovation. Mesopotamia wasn't chosen because it was paradise. It was chosen because it demanded creativity, cooperation, and complexity. Civilization was not born from comfort. It was born from struggle. 2. From villages to the world's first city. Around 4000 BCE, humanity crosses a threshold. Small farming communities join together into something larger. Something never seen before: the city of Uruk. Population: 40,000. More than anywhere on Earth at the time. Uruk becomes a great machine powered by irrigation canals that require coordinated labor, surplus agriculture that allows specialization, potters, builders, priests, administrators, temples that become economic centers, trade networks stretching to mountains for copper, stone, and timber. But with scale comes a problem. How do you manage thousands of people? How do you track labor, resources, property? You invent something, and Mesopotamia does. 3. Writing, a tool that changes everything. In Mesopotamia, writing does not begin as poetry. It begins as accounting. Clay tokens track grain, livestock, beer, laborers. Eventually, the tokens become clay tablets. The tablets become symbols. Symbols become words. Cuneiform, the world's first writing system, is born. With writing comes history, identity contracts, taxation, bureaucracy, power. The moment information becomes permanent, authority becomes permanent. Rulers can command across distance. Temples can control economic life. Laws can define justice. Humanity invented civilization's most powerful tool, but tools can become chains. 4. Kings, priests, and the birth of authority. Early Mesopotamia is ruled by priests. Later, by kings who claim they were chosen by the gods. The first kings do something radical. They centralize power. They create standing armies, tax systems, forced labor systems, large-scale irrigation networks. monumental architecture. Civilization becomes organized around hierarchy, but hierarchy becomes organized around ambition, and ambition becomes organized around warfare. 5. The first wars in human history. Mesopotamian cities grow close to each other, too close. Each city wants land, water, and prestige. Each ruler wants legitimacy. Armed conflict emerges as a political tool. And for the first time in history, we see professional soldiers, siege warfare, fortified city walls, war propaganda carved in stone. The famous stele of the vultures depicts soldiers marching in formation, the earliest known record of organized war. Civilization has advanced, so has violence. 6. The Akkadian Empire, humanity's first empire. Around 2334 BCE, a man named Sargon of Akkad rises, a cupbearer, a nobody. A man of such humble origins that legends say he floated down a river as a baby. But Sargon does the unthinkable. He conquers all of Mesopotamia. For the first time in history, independent cities become a single unified state, the Akkadian Empire. Sargon rules through centralized bureaucracy, standardized systems, loyalty networks, military innovation. And for a moment, Mesopotamia becomes the center of the world. But the empire faces the same ancient enemies: drought, rebellion, overextension, resource depletion. When rains fail for decades, agriculture collapses, cities fall empty, nomads invade, local rulers break away, humanity learns its first lesson in imperial fragility. What rises through coordination collapses through chaos. 7. Babylon, law, empire, and human nature. Centuries later, a new power emerges: Babylon. Under Hammurabi, Babylon becomes famous for something enduring: the first written legal code. Hammurabi's code is revolutionary because it attempts something no ruler had done: define justice, setting punishments, property rights, trade rules, family law, and social hierarchy. Civilization becomes self-aware. It tries to govern itself through principles, not just power. But even law cannot prevent Mesopotamia's deeper problem: the land is exhausted. 8. The collapse. When civilization outgrows its environment. Mesopotamia's fall is not one event. It is a slow erosion. Environmental decline hits first. Soil becomes salinized from irrigation. Farmland becomes barren. Crop yields collapse. Forests are cut down for construction. Drought cycles return. Economics become unstable. Too many elites, not enough producers. Heavy taxation crushes farmers. Cities depend on long-distance trade for basic resources. Empires overstretch their boundaries. Then geopolitics turn deadly. Amorites, Elamites, Kassites, Assyrians, Persians' empires rise and fall like waves. The civilization that created writing, law, mathematics, and kingship becomes a battlefield of competing powers. By 500 BCE, the world that began in Sumer has faded, but its ideas have not. Why do civilizations rise, and why do they fall? So we return to the question: what made Mesopotamia the cradle of civilization and the birthplace of its first collapse? The answer lies in 4 forces that still shape every society today. 1. Environment creates opportunity and limits. Mesopotamia's rivers gave it life, but also instability. Civilization grew because humans learned to control nature, but collapse came when nature pushed back. This pattern repeats across history. Egypt, Rome, Maya, Angkor, Easter Island civilizations rise where resources are rich and fall when growth exceeds nature's capacity. 2. Complexity enables progress, and fragility. Writing, bureaucracy, irrigation, trade networks. All these made Mesopotamia powerful. But complexity creates vulnerability. The more moving parts a society has, the more likely something breaks. Drought, war, famine, rebellion, leadership failure. The machine that builds greatness can also break under its own weight. 3. Power unifies and corrupts. Kings brought order. Empire brought security. Law brought justice. But ambition, rivalry, and tyranny brought war. The same psychology that builds empires also fractures them. Pride, greed, insecurity, the desire for legacy, the fear of rivals. Mesopotamia shows that power is a double-edged sword. 4. Innovation solves problems and creates new ones. Irrigation solves drought but salts the soil. Writing organizes resources but empowers elites. Empire brings peace but breeds resentment. Every solution plants the seed of the next crisis. Humanity creates and is undone by its own creations. What Mesopotamia really teaches us. So what does the world's first civilization teach us? That civilization is not a permanent achievement. It is a delicate balance between nature and ambition, innovation and restraint, unity and freedom. Mesopotamia shows us that. Civilization rises when we work together. Civilization falls when the system grows faster than the wisdom needed to guide it. It reminds us that progress has a cost, that power must be controlled, that nature sets limits we cannot ignore, that societies collapse not because they fail once, but because they fail to adapt. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: Mesopotamia never truly disappeared. Every time you write a word, follow a law, record information, build a city, sign a contract, or organize a society, you're using tools invented in a long-vanished land between two rivers. Mesopotamia teaches us that the foundations of civilization are ancient, but the questions we face are the same. How do we create justice? How do we balance growth with sustainability? How do we prevent power from corrupting? How do we respond when systems fail? And how long can any civilization endure? These aren't ancient questions. They're timeless questions. And the rise and fall of Mesopotamia still echoes inside the world we are building today. Because the first civilization is not just history, it is a mirror reflecting where we came from and where we may be heading. Subscribe Timeless Questions channel for more thought-provoking stories about philosophy, history, and the unseen forces shaping our world.